one end. There's hammocks between two trees. An owl lands in one tree, and then an owl lands in the other tree. So there's an owl in the tree at her foot and an owl at the tree at her head.
Oh, wow.
And they start hooting like crazy. And she says she feels a surge of energy, like running up and down between her. So she's like, I just can't help but like imagine a circuit on a little circuit board, a little component. And these owls are like, juicing her up or, recharging her batteries. She says she felt like she was being recalibrated.
Now, has she ever had any encounters with any, UFOs?
Oh, many. She's very outspoken about her UFO contact experiences. Yeah. And her husband's there. He comes home from the party and says, like, how you doing? He said, I feel a little better, but like, what do you notice? And she said, the husband's like, well, there's a hooting owl there and there's a hooting owl there. And she's like, yep. Very interesting. After that, so she's not very religious. And she said the Friday before, she started feeling the events of this surge of energy up and down her spine. This could be looked at as a Kundalini awakening. I've tried to tell that to her, and that's a sort of bad way to do the research. But I've brought that up during the research, and she said, "Nah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what it was." But that's certainly what it sounds like, a Kundalini awakening, which is often associated with an Eastern event that can certainly happen to Westerners, but it's often related to a surge of energy that feels electric running up and down the spine. On the Friday before, she said she was feeling it, and she blurted out, I have this recorded. She said, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm being crucified. And she told me this, and then Easter Sunday was when it's like, wait a minute, Friday, you feel like you're being crucified? Do you know what you're saying? That's the day Jesus was crucified. And she's like, what, really? I had no idea. So this is those little clues. I love those kind of little cinematic, mythological clues. Now, that happened on a Monday. I had a long conversation with her on a Monday. On Tuesday, I talked with a woman named Heather. Heather tells me the story. She's in her hammock in her backyard, and she's had some of the experiences that would relate to UFO contact, though she'd never seen a UFO.
Or she doesn't realize she's actually saw one.
No, she doesn't remember it yet.
Yeah.
So she's one of those maybe people, that has all the outlying events, yes. So she says, I want confirmation. And so she's kind of laying there, bright sunny day. She's kind of half in and out of sleep. And she says, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to count to 10. I'm going to close my eyes and count to 10 and open them. And that's going to be my intention when I open my eyes, is to get confirmation. She tries it a couple times. Nothing happens. And her son comes up. And her son was about 10 at the time. And he says, Mom, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm doing this little thing where I close my eyes and and the little boy interrupts. Oh, I want to do it. Let's do it together. And so without any prompting, the little boy says, I want to do it. Here, let's close our eyes. Dear God, can we see a UFO? 1, 2, 3. And they open their eyes. And then floating above the tree line is this like crystalline diamond-shaped object that's like, the way she described it was reflecting and refracting every color in the spectrum, including colors she had never seen before. And the boy runs into the house and gets the binoculars, and they sit and look with the binoculars, and here's these two stories. So Susan and Kelly, the two people with these hammock experiences, they both have experiences with hammocks in the backyard. One is a UFO abductee that knows she's a UFO abductee and has an experience with owls. The other, Kelly, is someone who suspects they've had UFO contacts but has never seen a UFO, and she has an experience with a UFO from a hammock. I get one on a Monday, I get one on a Tuesday. I look up their locations on a map. They lived 44 miles apart. And when you see pictures of those two side by side, they don't quite look like twins, but they certainly look like sisters.
That is so coincidental. I mean, if you're talking 40-some miles apart from each other, they look, somewhat similar. That boy, that tells me something happened. Something went on. I agree. Yeah. I mean,
I agree.
The one that was abducted, did she ever tell you, did she remember anything about her abduction at all?
Yeah, she's got all kinds of stories of being on ships and talking with gray aliens, and she's got, she's in nighttime visitations and missing time and synchronicities, and she's changed her life, and she's doing very, spiritual work and such. Yeah, so she's right. So, and the stuff she would tell, I can't tell it for you because those are her stories. But yes, so absolutely, she has those very stories to tell. The other woman.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other woman does not, though. The other woman has since seen a bunch of owls. She's in the second book too.
The thing is, when a lot of people have been abducted, they don't even remember for years sometimes, and then all of a sudden they start remembering just little things, start coming back, and that's what's interesting too. Or it's not
so little; they get hit over the head with it. Yeah,
all at once.
Very shattering. Yeah.
That makes me wonder about even with you. I mean, it sounds like you were abducted. I'm just wondering if you've been abducted anymore without realizing it. Like I said, I've had some guests.
I've certainly had experiences. Yeah, I've certainly had experiences that since then, in more recent years, that sure plays out as abduction. I mean, I have a memory of being in a tent and waking up. I was in a tent. With the lead up to this is funny. The question I ask people, what was going on in the lead up before your event, your experience? And I was driving around the Southwest. I was in Utah. I was with a friend. Her name is Natasha, and we were camping all over the place. This was just 8 years ago, I guess. It would have been 2011, so 7 years ago. Driving around the desert, and she, in the car, my Subaru, the brakes were acting funny, and there was a smell, and there was hot. You could just actually put your hand right on the wheel well and feel it was hot just on one side. And so I took it to a mechanic in this little town in Dolores, Colorado, cute little town, and the guy put it in the back of the thing, put it up on the stand, and he came back a little while later. He's literally like rubbing the oil off his hands with a dirty rag, and he says, "I can't let you leave town, or you'll die." And I'm like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" He said, "Your brakes are so bad, they're going to fail, and I would be liable if I let you out of town." So, and took 5 days to order the part. So we were stuck in this little town. We rented a car. Excuse me. But that night, we're camped in a tent, and both Natasha and I wake up screaming in terror, like I use the term synthetic fear. It was fear so extreme that it isn't rational. If a grizzly bear had ripped open the tent and put its jaws around my neck, I would not have been as scared as I was in that moment. We both described it. This lasts for maybe 10 minutes, and then poof, disappears, and we go to sleep. Bang, click, out. The next thing I know is I have this elevator up feeling, and I'm floating. I'm floating up, whoop, and as I float up, I see what I can only call like a pizza pan, like a pizza pan floating inside the tent, in a corner of the tent. And it's kind of translucent, it's kind of glowing, and then I don't feel like I pass through the top of the tent. It feels like it's like a dissolve, and all of a sudden I'm in this different realm, and I'm in this white realm, and I'm saying to myself, I have to remember this, I have to remember this, I have to remember this, I have to remember this. And then I'm saying, am I on a table? Am I on a table? Am I on a table? And then I hear Natasha's voice say, Mike, you're floating. And then feels like I'm back in the tent. Wow. And now I don't know, but that's my story. That's what I remember. And the next morning, we're like, what happened last night? And she said, I saw a face. It's like, you saw a face. What did you see? She said, I saw a face. It's like, where was it? And she points to the exact spot that I saw, the floating pizza pan, which I have since called a mandala. It was a circle with a single dot in the center of it. And so in that morning, I also had a big scratch. It started at my left shoulder and went down to my belly button. And, we were camping in the desert, and if I had been scratched by a cactus,
you would have known it.
That severe, I would have remembered it. And I had no memory of getting that scratch. But when I looked closely at the scratch, it wasn't a scratch at all. Like it looked like a single rose thorn or a single cat claw had been dragged across my skin. But on closer inspection, it was a tiny row of raised blisters.
Wow.
And they were like little red raised blisters. So my skin wasn't cut. It was like, and a few days later, it washed off in the shower, and both Natasha and I went, we should have taken a picture of it. And I'll tell you, Natasha is on one more of these people she fits into that category of those maybe people. She says all the experiences that imply contact. So, you ask her, and she would be kind of like, well, I don't think so. And so afterwards, we were in this town, and we had to rent a car. We went to a place nearby, and we did a sweat lodge ceremony with a Navajo elder. It was wonderful, really wonderful, wonderful, powerful experience. So the question I asked
with peyote.
No peyote. No, just
okay.
a hot rock.
Okay.
Okay. Totally lucid, but it was great. It was really wonderful. Beating the drum and chanting and the hot and out in the desert. It was wonderful. And so so the question I ask people when they have these experiences is like, what were you doing in the lead up to the event? What happened after? So in the lead up to this event, somebody said, you can't leave town or you'll die. In the aftermath of the event, I have a metaphoric death and rebirth ceremony in the form of a sweat lodge. That's what it is. You metaphorically die from the heat, and you are reborn when you emerge from the hogan, from the lodge. So, and there's about 100. I mean, I could talk for another 2 hours on this event as far as like all the other weird synchronicities that are associated with it. So, so I'm at the point now where I don't have any memories of being on board a craft, but I feel like I have, like if you have a puzzle on the coffee table, right, you don't have to have, the puzzle's almost done, but there's some pieces missing. Even if the pieces are missing, you can stand back and say, well, that's a sailboat on a lake. It's obvious. It's plain as day. And I feel like that too. Some of the pieces are missing. The image is plain as day to me.
Well, that's it. Like the person I had on that was, had an implant removed from Roger Lear, the same thing. He doesn't remember being on a craft. The last he remembers, him and his wife were in the car and they saw a UFO. But then somehow he got an implant in him, which was removed. And when it was gone through the lab and tested, some of the metal was in it. Some of it even had like a little silver in it. But it was the type of compounds that could not been made on Earth. Now, again,
yep, this is very interesting.
Yeah, and the whole point is, he doesn't remember being abducted. He just saw the UFO with his wife. I asked him, I said, was your wife abducted? And he goes, she was with me when I was with Dr. Lear when they removed it, and but she didn't want to go through it. So it was probably a good chance, she was abducted too.
There is a very good chance, yes. Yeah. So, this is all, yes, this is, and my sense is, listen, we've just talked tonight, and the fellow who calls in has his experience of something over his home, and I think I've become less locked into if someone is like physically abducted. I'm not locked into if someone is taken aboard a craft. I feel like that's too confining a requirement, and because sometimes you just can't prove it. My thought is the questions I ask are like, what are you doing for work? Or what are you doing? What's your passion? When people say, oh, I'm a Reiki therapist, or I'm a therapist, or I'm a nurse, or the number of people that are helping other people on this list is remarkable.
It's actually quite scary. It's just so many people, have seen things, it's to the point where they can't explain it. I'm going to go back to like around 2003, 2004. I was running a couple major camera stores, for professionals. We were importing Russian optics, infrared. And I took one. Yeah. And I took one home back then. And I started stargazing because, we sold a lot of telescopes. I look at telescopes and you could see satellites and stuff like that. It was cool. You could see the planets. Well, I took one of these home. I looked. And all of a sudden,